Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Couple of Nukes. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Whiskey, and I've always been guilty of being an emotional eater because I purposely run several miles a week so that I can do that, and I'm still young and have my metabolism. So while I can, I eat what I can, and later on in life when it starts to catch up, maybe I'll slow down. But today we're going to be talking about eating your feelings. It's not what you think, or maybe it is, but we're going to get into it with Mr. Cory Brown. Great to have you here. I know, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself, especially your military career, why you joined, when you joined, and all of that?
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Man, it's been a long time. I'm not quite as young as you are. Um, I actually joined up before 9/11. It was one of those things where my granddad had been in the Navy. He was in Okinawa during World War II. My uncle
Wow.
had been a Marine in Vietnam. And so it was there, kind of in the family. And I always remember, if I'd pass by the picture of my granddad at his boot camp graduation and see all the sailors in their uniforms, and I'd always stop and I'd look for him. I felt like proud. I didn't know it then, but that's what the feeling was. If I don't know, maybe I was a junior in high school. Our high school got a Air Force Junior ROTC program, and it appealed to me from the very beginning. So I joined that program. I did it for a couple years in high school. I started to get recruited by the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, everybody but the Army. So I was like, well, I'm going to go in the Army, and I know that makes sense. But I actually went to a military junior college for a couple years and I got commissioned as a second lieutenant. I don't know if you know this, but the Army wants you to have a bachelor's degree. That's really what they want from their officers.
Mm.
And after I got out of the military junior college, I went to regular university, four-year university, and I had a lot of other priorities, if you know what I mean. And it just didn't happen quick enough. So by the time that I was up for captain promotion, '03 in the Army, I had not secured my bachelor's degree, and so I had a choice to make. Either I could, you know, resign my commission or I could get out of the military. And I did not want to get out of the military. So I resigned my commission. The next day, I enlisted, came in as an E5. And, I do have some regrets. A lot of my peers, they ended up being colonels and generals. But I really enjoyed my time as an enlisted man. I felt like, especially when I was overseas, like EMs, man, they're the ones who are making it happen, and they're the ones where the rubber hits the road. Like when you're going
Yeah.
out of the wire and you're on those missions, like, yeah, you might have an officer as the convoy commander or you know officers around, but for the most part it's the junior enlisted and NCOs are carrying the weight. And so I really
Wow.
enjoyed that time. That's for me something that I miss. I know I did 16 and a half years. Half of that was on active duty and the other half was in the guard and reserves, but there's plenty of times when I'm like, I wish I would have finished up, or
Yeah.
like I'll get like a fuel smell, or like if I happen to go shoot rifles or something with my brother or friends, like it'll trigger something in my brain where I'm like, oh man, I kind of wish. There's plenty of things I don't miss, but there's a lot of things I do.
It's very interesting to me. I've had a lot of military members on the show, and it's always enlisted to officer route. We've covered that a few times. You are the first to go officer to enlisted. And so, first question being, was it known? Did you have some kind of special, like any special patches or designation, or was it kind of a secret? You were an E5 and a former officer, and only people at your former command kind of knew, or were you at the same command? How did that all work?
Well, I do like to be unique, so um, it's funny that especially in the guard. Well, I say especially in the guard, I knew several other people who had done the same thing. Right, they had been an officer and then they had resigned their commission and became a an NCO. And I think that the path for that, I mean, like that's not an ideal path. The Army's not going to push people in that direction.
Right, right.
For me, it was just like I'm not ready to quit being in the military. Like
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have my bachelor's degree, so I don't meet the requirements to get promoted to captain, but I still want to serve. I still enjoy this job. And that was my only course of action, right? If I wanted to stay in, that's what I had to do.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. So I think there's a lot of, I actually admire that a lot, because I think there's a stigma around it. Of course, people are like, oh, how do you say, like you went down a level in life. But I mean, really, you stayed in when most people would have gotten out. And I do think there's a lot of honor in that. And I think, honestly, as much as my personal opinion, I don't know all the reasons behind it, but I think it's kind of stupid to say, hey, you need to get a bachelor's degree. Because ultimately, and I've never been an officer, I've only been enlisted, but it's like, what is really going to translate from you getting a degree into being a leader? If you're an officer, you're already been trained through the military to a degree and you've already lived experience of being a leader. It's almost like just getting this accolade to get it. I feel like it shouldn't be required. If you're a good officer and you know what you're doing and you're up for promotion and you don't have a degree, I mean, what does the army or in any branch need you to have a degree for other than just this kind of public pride image like our higher ups, they all have bachelor's degrees. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't care if you have a degree or not. Can you do the job? Can you give
Yeah.
orders? Can you take orders? Can you do the job? But that's just, my personal view on it. And I know I'm sure there's more reasons behind it, but I mean, that's just my thinking right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it happens infrequently. I think for the most part, officers have their bachelor's when they're commissioned.
Yeah.
There were, and I don't know the number now, but when I was going through, there were like 8 military junior colleges in the country, and that had commissioning programs. And for the most part, those lieutenants they finish their 4-year degree, and they truck on along like they're supposed to. But there's some of us, who don't. And I mean, I understood the risk, and I knew what the rules were. It was frustrating, but like, I guess I didn't finish getting educated. I ended up getting my master's degree too. So like there was a lot of motivation from it. It made me really, I don't know, respect, I guess, what people were going through. Like I know that was something that had to be done. I didn't do it. I paid the consequence for it, but I'm feel very fortunate that I was still able to serve and find a path to keep being in the military because I enjoyed it so much.
What would you say right now to the people who maybe don't have their priorities straight or they have them in a different order than maybe they should and maybe they're ending up on the wrong course because of it. What would you say to them to focus up and obviously you've made it clear that even if you don't, focus up, you can still make something right and it's all gonna work out. But I mean, what would you say to them about like getting their priorities straight?
Yeah, I'll be 47 next month, just here in a couple weeks, and there's still times when I need to have a check on myself, right? Reprioritize things. Life's complicated, life is hard. The older you get, the more complications that seem to enter that space. For me, what makes me think about is constant improvement, right? Like I always try to move forward, and if I move back, I want to study that. I want to understand that adversity and what caused me to either go backwards, stay in the same place, or move forward, right? And I want to learn from that. It's a progression. I always tell folks if when I'm leading teams or if I'm talking to folks about this sort of thing, like never stop learning and never stop thinking that you have to learn because you're going to constantly face adversity. My daughters probably get sick and tired of hearing this. Like, why do you talk about adversity all the time? Because you're always going to have it in your life,
Hmm.
and like how you respond to it is going to mean a lot of things. It's going to either mean you're successful and you get past it and you keep moving in the direction you want to move, or you're going to have a setback, right? And what are you going to do when you have that setback? How do you respond? So for me, that's kind of like what I would tell folks is like, look, you're not going to stop adversity. You're not going to just have a life that has no obstacles or challenges in the way. So learn as early as you can, how do you face that adversity? How do you overcome those challenges? And that's going to help you because you're just going to have to keep coming up against that stuff, in life, and how you respond to it is going to have a big effect on what happens.
For sure. And so, uh, just again, how many years did you serve total?
16 and a half, 16 and a half. I
So I gotta
know,
be
I
that
know,
guy. You already
I
know what I'm
know.
gonna say.
My wife reminds me all the time, but another adversity I face usually like, um, I injured my neck
Mm,
towards the end, and um, priorities again, right? Like I didn't exercise like I should have. I didn't eat like I should have. The other things I let get in the way of my lifestyle, and like it was harder and harder to like physically meet the demands of the job, and that's where I'd gotten to at a point like, yes, way back in the day, I wanted to keep serving and I enjoyed it. I got to a point towards the end where I was like, I can't physically do this anymore, and it's not fair, right? Like it's not fair for other people who are busting their butts and doing the right things and you know meeting the requirements. And I was just like,
mm,
I just I don't I guess maybe I don't deserve a spot anymore, right? Like my time's come to an end. I need to
mm,
find something else to do. And I mean, the Army helped me out a little bit. They said, maybe it's time, and I said I agree, and that's where we ended up. Now, all the times I've thought about this, there's some regret there. I wish I would have kept up my physical fitness. I wish I would have done a lot of things, but it ends up being a lot of excuses. And I figured,
yeah.
I felt proud of the service that I had. I felt a lot of ways I had felt fulfilled by the career that I had. But yeah, it was time to move on, and so I figured it out.
All right, I got two questions from that. The first one being, have you hit that what would have been your 20-year mark yet?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I joined in '98, May of
Okay.
'98. So yeah, I mean, I see. I got out 2015, so it's been 10 years.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
And then
I know you
the other
can't tell.
question.
I know I'm the picture of youth, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's been a while.
A young 47 in a few weeks here, you know.
That's right.
And you mentioned excuses. And so I'd love to ask, what, if you can recall, what was the number one excuse you kind of had for yourself that maybe we should get rid of right now, from our lives?
Yeah, and I still battle this today, but I'd say, like when I was younger, I ran track, I ran cross country. I love to run. I used to love to run. Um, One of the things that I fell in love with, in my 20s was jiu-jitsu. Loved jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Loved doing the Army Combatives program. You know, loved every aspect of that sport. But then, I sidelined myself for a little while with the neck injury. I ended up having to get neck surgery. That was right before my middle daughter was born. So I guess maybe 11, 12 years ago. And, like leading up to that, though, I mean, it was easy for me to pick everything but going out to the run or going to the gym or going to jiu-jitsu more consistently, right? Like I let other things get in the way of that. I made choices to do other things. And so, the fitness level definitely dropped off. And like there's, when that happens, it's hard to get back, especially like you get older and, you're not moving like you used to, you're not recovering like you used to. I wish I wouldn't have let that slip so much. Like I had a lot of people trying to support me and motivate me, but like I just made other choices, and um, I'm not necessarily happy about those choices, and it's kind of led me down that path of like ending my service early. But even today, I still make excuses about fitness and physical fitness. Like oh, it's too hard to run, or like it's oh, I got to do that. I got to help my daughters
Yeah.
do this, or I got to help my wife do that. Like a lot of stuff gets in the way. And I would think people should focus more on their fitness because like as you get older, you know, it will probably make things easier in the longer run if your fitness is at the right level, if your eating habits are right. But look, I mean, I know all the things I'm supposed to do. I don't always do them.
For sure. And I think, like you said, not being an athlete, but just maintaining a base level that's good to work with, especially as you get older. So I agree a lot. And opposite of that, we're gonna move into comfort food, actually, ironically enough. But you know, my mom growing up, she always wanted to move. My dad had promised we would move, we didn't. And she spent a lot of time on various, websites, house shopping. And I think it rubbed off on me because when I was looking at your website, I was like, man, that's a nice kitchen. I'd like to have that kitchen in my, in my place. So that was definitely my mom talking through me. And that's an allusion to your website features some beautiful cinematic photos of you in the kitchen. And that's because you have a cooking show coming up pretty soon here. And, I'm excited for that. And, I referenced the name of it in the very beginning, which was to eat your feelings, and cooking, comedy, and conversations on mental health, which I like two of those. I prefer eating, comedy, and conversations on mental health. That's what I prioritize and do. But you are the chef here, and I'd love for you to tell us all about this show that you've got coming up, this project that you have poured your heart and soul into, starting with kind of, I guess, where the idea originated and what it's grown into now.
Yeah. Like for as bad as I am at running and staying healthy, that's as good as I try to be when I'm cooking. And look, man, you can't really get to eating without cooking. So the impetus
Yeah,
for it, though, it all starts with mental health to me. The vision for it came from pain, heartache, loss. Like I know you have been impacted by this, and I know a lot of your guests have been impacted by this. A lot of the listeners will have been impacted by this. But it's been several years now, but I lost one of my good army buddies to suicide.
mm,
And it was funny because funny. Our unit did our deployment. We it was a tough deployment, being scouts, doing convoy escorts, doing a few route recons here and there. We didn't lose anybody. We didn't lose anybody. No KIAs. We had some people get hurt, some Purple Hearts and things like that, but we were very fortunate that everybody came home. And since we came home, several suicides, um, people making poor choices in life, prison, uh, things like that. And like, I had known a lot of the people that had died by suicide. Um, but when I got the call about my really good buddy, it was so different. And
yeah,
I live in Northern Virginia and he lived in Dothan, Alabama. So that's probably a good, you know, 12 to 14 hours away. And I was like, I'm not missing this. And my wife and I um, drove down from Virginia. And you get a lot of time thinking, when you're doing a
for
drive like
sure.
that. And when we got there, there was this mix of the guys that were there where we were celebrating knowing our buddy while at the same time being completely heartbroken that he had made that choice and that that his life had gone in that direction. And when I was coming back, it really hit me hard. And I was like, what can I do? Like I cried a lot on that road trip back home. I had a lot of light bulb moments. But the bottom line was I got home knowing that I had to do something, right? I was feeling guilty. I was feeling so many emotions. Well, fast forward a little bit of time. Um, and The Bear came out, right? I never worked in a restaurant, really, like a pizza joint, I guess, but never in a really, full service restaurant. I had always enjoyed cooking. Like, I really loved my nana, growing up, and that's one thing she just was better at than everybody, right? Like she could cook, and it was like a show to just get over there and watch her do her thing, right? No recipes, no, like just magic, right? So I had grown up around this woman who was just a really good cook and like made really great food, and like everybody would always enjoy it, and you could see like all that, like all these things are coming together, right, for me. Um, and when I watched The Bear, I watched the first season like 6 or 7 times. Just it was like they made that show for me. They were putting things out there in dialogue, conversation between the characters, or I could see it and hear it, and I was like, all these feelings I was having inside me that I couldn't get out in conversation, or I just couldn't put the right thoughts around them to make something of them. Like this show was doing that for me. And there was a guy on the show who's I don't know if you watch the show, but Fack, Neil Jeff Fack, he's a real chef, like in real life. Came from Toronto. Matty Matheson is his name. And I probably came a little bit um what's the word? Infatuated with Matty Matheson. And I was just one like he had a YouTube show. Like he cooked a cheeseburger for Vice one time and somehow that blew up. And now he's got his own YouTube thing going. He's on this show as an executive producer, an actor. Like his life has really turned around. He's been sober for a decade or more. But I learned everything I could about him. I listened to him on podcasts. I watched all of his YouTube shows. Like something about him was really like sticking out to me. So like the mental health came first, then the cooking kind of came second, and then finally the epiphany for it to be a YouTube show. And then the comedy was really like the other element because I was thinking to myself, like, we've got cooking. What else can we add to this that makes some of this mental health talk palatable, right? Because a lot of times, when I do stuff for Mission 22, right? Like if we go to a Wizards game up here and set up a table and we're passing out literature, it's very difficult, right? Because those people are there to enjoy a basketball game. They don't want to feel bad, right? And so I took that memory of doing events like that, and I was thinking to myself, like, if I'm just out here talking about mental health, like, is it going to break through? Is it going to resonate? Are people going to like be able to just tolerate it? And so that's where the comedy aspect came from. Like, how can we make this fun, do some cooking, show how that's therapeutic, and then really talk about some of the hard things at the same time? And that's kind of how it all came together. My buddy Sam, who's co-hosting with me, it's like when we get together, we just have this chemistry, and we can be funny, and we can be like real with each other, and all that stuff just came together in the right recipe. And the dish has become this YouTube show and this kind of like brand that we're trying to get behind and get it out there. But that's really how it all came together.
When you said funny, I think the translation for me is ironic because when I had Scott DeLuzio, host of the Drive On podcast, he was on my show and I was on his show, and I don't remember which time, but we were talking about the suicides post deployment. He said, we went out to the Middle East, we were under enemy fire, didn't lose anyone. And then months, years later, you're having these suicides and losing those people. And him and I were just baffled by the irony of it because flip side, my time in the military, pre-deployment, we had the suicides. Of course, there are definitely ones that happen underway and during deployment sometimes, but for the most part, most of the ones that I've heard about, from my personal experience and people I've met before and after, and the after is what really gets almost that bittersweet chuckle of like you made it through the Middle East, and it's like it's just it's really sad, and I get that, and I do have to ask, because I'm not familiar with it, and for anyone listening who's not familiar with it, you said it's a cooking show called The Bear, is what you were referencing?
Yeah, it's on FX. I watch it on Hulu.
Okay.
It's called The Bear. I think it's been out for 3 or 4 seasons now, 3 seasons.
Is it just like a cooking competition, or is there more
No, no,
plot
no.
to it?
It's
Or
a like a drama comedy, like a dramedy, you know.
okay, but
Yeah.
it revolves around different chefs, or
It revolves around, I don't want to give it away because it's an
okay, yeah,
outstanding show. People should
okay.
watch it. It's
I'm just trying
stressful.
to
I
understand what the
will say
bear
that.
means, what that if how the title plays into
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
here.
So a guy who is a world-renowned chef, really good at what he does. His brother had owned a Italian beef shop in Chicago. All right. So he died by suicide. And so Carmy, the main character, had to come back to Chicago to run the restaurant, right?
Mm,
And it's like he transforms it, and the bear is just kind of like a play off of what people called him because his last name was like Berzado, and
okay,
they just called him the bear.
okay, okay. Do you have a chef's nickname?
Man, no, I'm not a chef now. That was one of the
The
things because in
culinary
in the
creator
episodes
experimenter.
we play off of it, right? Like, hey, are you a chef? Nope. Are you a therapist? Nope. Are you a comedian? Nope. But like we're gonna put all these things together. Um, no, I don't, I mean, no, no real nicknames that exist today, I'd say.
Okay. Okay, maybe that'll come in, season 2 or 3. You
Maybe.
gotta you
Yeah.
can't come out off the bat with it. Maybe the fans will make it. You could have a
I
poll
feel like they're
after
gonna give me a lot of nicknames.
something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, and I think definitely if you're not doing this, if this isn't in your works, you can take this idea from me for a small royalty fee.
I
The
hear
Eat
you.
Your Feelings aprons, you got to make those because I know I would definitely get one, and you could always partner up with a nonprofit too for like feeding the homeless and stuff.
Yep.
Do a fundraiser, but definitely, if I'm gonna wear an apron, I'd love to, be supported in mental health, fellow veteran, and stuff like that. So just pitching some ideas live here, but
I appreciate that.
I know. So you've got one full season recorded so far for release, or a couple episodes, or
Yeah. So you mentioned the kitchen. That was actually an Airbnb. So what we did to pull this off was like, and look, no, we've never done this before, but
yeah,
I'm in the people that are involved, the little team that I've got together for this. We all have experience and skills around marketing, communications, all that stuff. So trying to apply that to this endeavor. But we had an Airbnb and we filmed 4 episodes in one day. We'll never do that again, but that's what we did.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and we did that in May, and it's like one of the things that I felt like was key to this, the cooking show aspect of it was it had to have high production value. Like it had to look like it belonged as a cooking show, you
Like it's
know.
gonna be on TV on the Food Channel one
Yeah,
day.
that's right, right? Like it needed that to separate itself from a lot of other creators out there. I thought, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the angle that I wanted to take. And so we had a buddy of mine who runs a production agency. He came to the table and we had a whole crew out there. It was a multicam effort. So there's 4 cameras, 7 microphones, So yeah, it was cool. Like the first time I went in on set and kind of checked it out, I was like, I couldn't believe it. It's like, holy Moses, like nothing in my head was really preparing me for that. But yeah, the next time we record, which is going to be in October, we'll do a full 10 episode season. But yeah, it'll be like over 4 days because we'll never going to do 4 episodes in one day again.
I can imagine that. I've had days of just I had like a 10-hour podcasting day where I did like 6 episodes back to back to back. And that's just sitting and talking. That's not running around the kitchen and everything. So I couldn't imagine, 4 episodes straight. And I'm assuming they're between 45, 60 minutes or maybe on the longer side or
Less, less. We shoot for like a 15-minute episode,
okay.
but that's after, that's post, right? So
Yeah.
I
Cutting
think,
out the cooking time and stuff.
yeah, man, because there's a lot of dead time, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think the first episode we filmed that day took us about an hour and a half. All right. So we have about an hour and a half of video. And then each other episode after that, probably around an hour of filming, right? Because you do have
Mhm.
to like things you have to bake or they have to,
Yeah.
like there's some tricks and stuff we try to pull off, but like still cooking takes some time. You can't cook everything in 15 minutes, especially some of the things that we were tackling. Like a lot of this from the cooking side I wanted to tackle some like intimidating recipes, but just to show like how easy they are. So like here's some French dishes, but just because they're French don't mean you can't make them, right? Like
Yeah.
that's one of the angles that I wanted to bring to the table.
Could you share with us, out of all those episodes you filmed, do you have a favorite dish from any of them, or a favorite episode, maybe more for the comedy side of it,
Yeah.
or they're all great. Check all of them out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping that all of them will have like their own parts and pieces that people can really get behind. One of the most difficult things to do was to go back to that angle, right, of the mental health, real talk, hard talk, sensitive stuff. Like, how do we do that? And we do the recipe, like the cooking, and be funny. Like, how do we wrap all that together? And so when I was writing some of the scripts, and when I say scripts, I really mean guardrails. But we didn't have any scripted dialogue, and all of our stuff was just ad hoc. But I mean, what can I say? Like, it was hard, right? Like, how do I make the flow work? How do I make this happen in a way that's going to like distill down into 15 minutes and like it's going to be funny. We're going to get through the recipe because that's important for a cooking show. And the third thing was like, how do we like it's got to have the mental health. Like we can't leave that out. Like that's the whole reason we're doing this. That was hard. I'm not going to lie. It's still hard. Even on number 4 that day, like we were still like it was still a struggle just to make sure um that we didn't just gloss over any of the hard talk because we wanted the authenticity and the real sensitive nature of some things that you can talk about to be part of the show. And when you ask me about favorites, I think the third and fourth episodes we filmed, we were really starting to get more comfortable. We were getting more loose, with
Yeah,
things,
for sure.
which allowed us, I think, to go harder into the hard stuff, but yet still be able to like cook the recipe that we were aiming for and still have enough levity to make it where it's not like one of the producers on set, she was like, you know, you guys had us dying laughing and we're like tears of joy. And then 5 minutes later, we're like so sad and tears of sadness, and like it was like that the whole time. And, I kind of take that as a compliment because I think that means we were doing what we were supposed to do.
Right. And I think the website is up now. You're going to be adding stuff to it. And then if you just want to share that tentative launch date so people can, have that, this episode will be coming out, I think, just slightly before that. So everyone
Yeah.
can keep that in mind.
September 25th, we launched live to YouTube. First episode will drop. What we're planning to do is every couple weeks after that, we'll drop another episode. And we're going to start filming some other content that we'll drop as like short form stuff. We'll do some behind the scenes, some bloopers.
Right.
Everybody loves good bloopers. And I think we're going to film a little bit of, around like, why are we doing this? Who are we? What's our story? Why is this
Right.
important to us? So we're going to get some of that stuff out there as well.
For sure. And we're going to have that website in the description below for everyone to check out,
Appreciate that.
eatyourfeelingshow.com. Ton of great, images already. And, like you said, I think it's going to be awesome. And I mean, I'll ask you, I guess, you kind of already said it, but what people will take away from watching this show.
The hope is that people will feel something, feel like they're watching something they can relate to. I'm hoping that maybe they can get that same sort of feeling that I was talking about with the bear, right? Like you can be seen, you can be heard, like you're valid. There's nothing about you or what you're going through that's not worthy of talking with somebody about it or trying to get help or, it's just there are reasons to stick around, you know. There are reasons to keep pushing. And if this cooking thing can be one of those, therapy things for you, then by all means, please, we hope that can get out there. A lot of the folks that we have showed this to, close family, close friends, I've gotten the feedback from them like, oh, maybe I cooked that beef bourguignon. or yeah, we tried that jambalaya and it was awesome. It's like we want people to enjoy the show. We want them to think that there's some funny stuff that can happen between these two southern fat white dudes. Like I think that that's important to us. But at the same time, my takeaway is like one of the things that's going to make success happen for me is that people feel like they get something from it who really need it, right? And it makes them want to go talk to a therapist, or it makes them, reach out and look for what kind of resources are out there available to them, right? And that's something that improves their life and helps them walk the path and get past the adversity and overcome the challenges. That's the takeaway that's most important to me.
Alrighty, and we're gonna end here with a question I have to ask you just because of the nature of the episode. It's gonna be a tough one. Let's say hypothetically, you're a death row inmate and for war crimes, and you got your last meal. You can only pick, one thing. What is that gonna be?
Mm, breakfast, just like my nana used to make. Biscuits, fried bologna, sausage, bacon, grits, scrambled eggs.
A big breakfast. It's a
Man,
lumberjack
okay.
feast.
Well, we used to do some hard work in the summertime over there with their garden and the cows. So, like,
Yeah.
you got all those calories. But
Yeah.
man,
Nana don't play.
yeah, you got to trust her, man. She would know what she was doing. I miss that woman. But she like that's like I cook breakfast all the time, and I can't hit it like she did. Like so like
Yeah.
that's probably the one thing I'd ask for.
I got to sidestep and backtrack to did you say fried bologna?
Oh my gosh, man, you haven't lived yet. You
That
haven't lived.
sounds, whew, that sounds healthy.
Man, you
I
put
got
that
it.
on some biscuits.
Okay. Okay, I hear you. That's something. So, ladies and gentlemen, y'all gotta try some fried bologna if you haven't had it. And yeah, Mr. Cory Brown, I want to thank you for your service to this country, and I encourage everyone to check out your cooking show, Eating Your Feelings. We got that in the description below. Coming out soon, lots of great content, and I'm excited, to check it out as well. I bet you I haven't heard of half the recipes y'all are going to be tackling, so I think that's going to be awesome to learn new recipes, to get some mental health insights, some comedy, just an all around good time. And I can tell it's something that y'all are very passionate about, something that's going to be very easy to connect with genuinely. It's not a sales pitch, it's nothing like that. It's like just good people doing a good thing. So I'm excited for that, and thank you for coming on the show and sharing that today, so people can go ahead and check that out when it comes out.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Sailing through the ocean blue, nuclear reactors, my crew, guiding the ship, the stars as our guide, through the waves we ride, jokes and laughter fill the air. On this voyage we have to share, working together, side by side, as one family we will abide. In the heart of a ship we reside, nuclear operators with pride, powering the vessel with every stride. Our mission, a source of great pride.